And we're live. Excellent. Welcome back to another Mark. Good morning. It's good to have you again.
Hey, Shane. Good morning.
Good. So for those that have not caught either of us on all of the previous live streams for this hackathon, I'm Shane McAllister. I'm on the developer relations team as a developer advocate here at MongoDB, and Mark is on the same team, a colleague of mine. So, and Mark, you're in Scotland.
I am indeed.
Excellent. So these live streams we are running all the time. We are in week 4 of the MongoDB hackathon. So for those that may just be catching this live stream for the first time, I'm just going to do a brief introduction to the MongoDB hackathon and what it's about. For those that have been following us as we make our way through this hackathon, I do apologize for the repetition. I promise to essentially keep it kind of short and sweet. So, Mark, I removed you. There you are. You're back again. Perfect. So the MongoDB World Hackathon is essentially a build-up event that we're doing for prior to MongoDB World. MongoDB World is our flagship event, which is happening, thankfully, back in person once again in New York on June 7th to June 9th. It hasn't, obviously, due to COVID, has not happened in person for the last 2 years. We've been virtual, but we're delighted to be back in person. And we are doing this hackathon on the build up to MongoDB World. The hackathon, we have over 400 participants so far. We're always looking for more. It's not too late to register. It's never too late to join and get involved. So we've made it super simple. So if you haven't registered already, it's simple as going to mongodb.com/world. That's our World website. You can read all about World and everything that's going on there and see our speakers and our agenda, etc. too. But if you look in the top nav bar, we have the Hackathon tab there. And if you click on the Hackathon tab, it takes you into our page around this hackathon and what's it all about. And you can certainly read all of the details there. But I'd like to draw your attention to the large green button in the middle of the screen, which is register for the hackathon. If you are on the MongoDB community, the register for the hackathon button will simply drop you into the MongoDB community and join you up with the hackathon group. So it's a simple one-click registration. If you're not already a member of our MongoDB community and our forums, you just have to register, simple, quick registration for the forums itself, which will then automatically add you to the hackathon group, and you're away. Once you do that, you'll be dropped into a welcome page, etc., and find out all the details and information. Over on the right-hand side of the forums, you'll see some quick links, some FAQs, some resource links as well. But the main thing that we're doing to try and engage with our hackathon participants is essentially live stream as much as possible. So you'll find myself and Mark and our other colleagues are live streaming about 4 or 5 times per week. We are doing it in a couple of time zones to suit our global audience. We've seen a huge amount of participation in the hackathon from APAC region and across Europe, and obviously into the US as well too. So the live streaming sessions are essentially for us to impart information and show you our own progress through the hackathon and give you some feedback and some tips and some hints and some tools. And we do that on both YouTube and on our Twitch channel. So the MongoDB YouTube channel and also the MongoDB Twitch channel, you will catch the live streams. They are all recorded. So we have a playlist on YouTube for the hackathon. So do not fear if you've missed any of the live streams, you can always go back into any of them. In essence, we kind of have a couple of themes running in the live streams. There is orientation. We've done a lot of orientation live streams. What's the hackathon about? How do you join? How do you get involved? How are we running it, etc. And then the theme of this hackathon is data as news. And we're using this fabulous data set called the GDELT data set that Mark will talk to you a little bit about. And so this session and a few of the past sessions have all been about the data set, how to work with the data set and how to use it with MongoDB as well too. The other thing that we're doing, which is happening tomorrow, we do this every Friday, is our Fun Hack Fridays. And a colleague of ours, Nick Raboy, runs this one, and either Mark or myself or our other colleagues will join in as well too. So we are also hacking along with you in this hackathon. So we are learning about the GDELT data set, and we are using our knowledge of MongoDB and our tools to build our own minimal viable products. So we've
We're
built
going to
a
be doing
news
some of that
browser.
on this stream.
Yes, yeah, and we're going to do some more. Yes. So the news browser that we're building is essentially, a good example of how to use this data set in your own projects as well too. And we're making the repos, etc., available for you to browse and see how we went about doing it. So those sessions, as Mark said, we will be doing some of that now and some more tomorrow. They're really worthwhile, and please tune in for those so you can follow along with our progress. If you like listening to podcasts, we of course have a podcast as well too. We recorded it a while back with our colleague Mike Lynn. Episode 105 of the MongoDB podcast is all about the hackathon. So jump in and tune in for that as well too. And finally, really, with what's in it for you, why participate? Well, as I said, we've got over 400 registrants so far. We are delighted with the numbers. We're already, always on the lookout to register some more. We're in week 4 of the hackathon. It's running up until May 20th. So there's still plenty of time to register. As long as you build a project that's using MongoDB and the GDELT news data set, you can submit that project anytime up until the end of day, wherever you are in the world, on May 20th. We are incentivizing and encouraging you in lots of different ways. Of course, we've got swag. All developers love swag. We've got some unique t-shirts printed up this year for the hackathon. You will not get these anywhere else. What do they say in the ads on TV? This is an exclusive or whatever. We have a hackathon store too, where we have got other swag items available. And we are putting essentially, this is not for the people who submit. This is kind of, we're giving out swag as people participate. Really, this is a reward for participation. So the Fun Hack Friday last Friday, we had one team come on board and share their demo. So that's one way to get swag. We also want to encourage people to participate more on the forum. So we have prizes for the most helpful, the most collaboration as well. And in the forums, we have a projects category, and we really, really need people to put up the details of their projects in our forum so that we can see what's being built. We can help out if necessary. And any team that lists their project there with a link to their active repo will get swag. We'll send you an invite link to our swag store for the hackathon. So I highly encourage everybody to do that. We want to be able to see what's being built before the submission deadline as well, so that we can help you out as much as possible. There are other incentives too. We have, as I said, MongoDB World in New York on the 7th to 9th of June is on, and this is a build-up event for that. We have a discount code for registering. So if you can go in person, if you're able to travel and get to New York around that time and you're using MongoDB, I highly recommend it. But we incentivize a little bit more because we've got this MDB Hack 50 code, which is a 50% discount off the MongoDB World registration fee. And at the moment, since yesterday, since May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and up until tomorrow, I think, is that right, Mark?
Yep, I think so. It's the end of tomorrow.
Yeah, we have reduced the ticket price for MongoDB World to $400. And then you can add this discount code on top of it. So with the MDB Hack 50 code, it's going to be $200. So it's superb value. And if you are in the area, able to travel, please register using that code. It means a lot to us to get people on board. Also, we've got a Atlas credits for everybody who's participating in the hackathon. $100 of Atlas credits. As Mark will show you, you can participate in the hackathon on our free tier, no problem. Our M0 free tier has enough storage and enough compute to help you build your project, no problem. But if you want to take that a bit further, the $100 of Atlas credits will allow you to bump up the tier, increased compute, bandwidth, storage, whatever you need there as well too, for the purposes of participating with the hackathon. So we're delighted to be able to share that. And we have some prizes along the way too. So every submission, we're looking to get those uploaded to our forums as well. The submission process, super easy. We're going to open out an area of our forums for submission next week, and you'll be literally uploading just details of your project, a short 3-minute long video of your project in action, and a link to your repo so the judging team can review that. We've got some prizes that we're just about to announce. They're pretty cool prizes, in fairness, and we can't wait to let you all know what you could be in for. And we've got a nice kind of prize range as well too. So that's something new for anybody who's been participating in these live streams before. We will be announcing the prizes. So just going back to the timeline before market started, we started this April 11th, so we're in week 4 at the moment. Right now, we're heading towards essentially, helping people build, doing all of these live streams to orientate you as much as possible about the GDELT data set and also MongoDB. And from next week onwards, we're going to be helping people around submissions as well too. But you have plenty of time. May 20th, still a good bit away, to build a project using MongoDB, using the GDELT data set, and submit it as an entry for the hackathon. So that's enough pitching from me. I think you're all here to watch some code and see how things go. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Mark, you can take over. It's all yours.
Thanks, Shane, for the awesome introduction. I've just realized I haven't actually queued up sharing my screen, so let me do that.
That's okay. It's just live stream. This stuff happens, right?
There we go. Excellent. So just start off in the browser. We're just going to start describing some data. I'm going to click on something I've never clicked before and see if I can swap us over, Shane. So I'm on. Oh, there we go. I'm on the top now.
I'm not offended. It's okay. It's okay. Fine. Yeah. Great.
We're working with this GDELT data set, as Shane mentioned. I'm just going to bring up a URL here. So this is a connection string for our publicly hosted read-only data set. There are some limitations with this. You don't have write access to it. It's got a year's worth of data in there. We're still kind of cleaning some stuff up in that data set, but it's a good way to get started, like just to connect to a database and start looking at the data and kind of understanding the data, because there are some real complexities to this data once you start to dig in. Every time I talk to Nick, we discover that there's sort of subtleties about how this data is actually modeled that we didn't quite understand. Some of those may come up during the stream when I'm trying to describe stuff. But yeah, if you want to get hold of the GDELT data or want to read the documentation about it, check out the gdeltproject.org website. There's lots and lots of documentation in there. Click through to the documentation section. What we're going to be working with today is called the GDELT 2 events dataset. And it's basically this stream of events updated every 15 minutes that are gathered from news reports that are published on websites around the world. They're automatically translated from over 36 different languages. And then they've essentially got some kind of clever AI engine that extracts kind of these elements of data. So this idea of what an event is. So usually these are geopolitical events. So it's like a country declaring war on another country, or signing a peace treaty, or agreeing to future defense ties and things like that. And you can slice and dice it in multiple different ways. There's data in there about the sentiment score, so how positively people feel about an event. In fact, given that I've got a document up here at the moment, I can kind of show you some of this stuff. So there's usually an actor 1 and 2, one of those, 1 or 2, and that will be a country that's actually kind of driving an action, or kind of the recipient of one of these events. And then the action sometimes there's some description in there, and those can contain geographical data as well. So a point on a map that locates one of those entities. They could be countries or states usually, and then sometimes it's a specific bureaucracy. So it's like we found one a couple of days ago that was like a legislation in Ohio, I believe, so a legislator in Ohio. So you can get some kind of legal things there when countries enact laws that are important on a sort of geopolitical scale.
But it's fair to point out too, Mark, that yes, it's slightly biased towards that type of news, but it is huge. It's enormous. And I think one of the things too that why we chose this was the fact that it updates every 15 minutes, right? So usually when you do a hackathon, you're given a fairly limited, small, static data set. And this is exactly the opposite. It's massive, it's large, and it updates very, very regularly. And indeed, some versions of it update every minute, right?
Absolutely. So it was the thing that excites me most about this is the fact that it's updating all the time. And so that's kind of what I'm going to build an app around today. So it's going to be a command line app. It's not going to be very pretty. I'm not a front end developer, as anybody who's ever seen my JavaScript will agree. I'm going to build a script that sits and monitors the collection of data that we're actually looking at the moment. And anytime a document is added to that collection, it's going to check whether it's in a certain region, like the area that I'm interested in. And then if it is in that region, it's then going to send me a text message to notify me that there's been some like news that's relevant to my location. And so we're going to be using a bunch of different features. Like we're going to be monitoring a collection for changes using change streams. We're going to be filtering those using an aggregation pipeline and our geospatial types. So we can efficiently index things like points and look things up in polygons. And then I'm going to be tying it in. I'm going to be integrating it with Twilio, just a few lines of code to send an SMS message.
That's brilliant, because as I said at the beginning, I mean, my pieces are usually repetition. Join the hackathon, come on! But this is brand new, because this is not something that we've done on the live streams before. So I'm super excited to see this as well.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. So yeah, this is one document here. I have actually, one of the neat things in the Atlas Data Explorer is if you find a document that's kind of interesting, you can copy and paste it. I'm trying to find it. I think maybe you have to click on the edit tab. No. There was like a button that came up here earlier today that yesterday that I used. There it is. So if you hit this copy button here, it will basically copy a JSON version of this into your clipboard. And so I did that with I did a search for events within a certain region. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. And then I basically copied and pasted that into my own Python code. So let's switch to my editor. There we go. I only set this up very quickly just before the call. So I've already built myself a test script. So this test script is just basically because I'm going to want to be adding documents to this this collection so that I can monitor, so I can test my monitoring. I've just got this short script that this is what I pasted in from that collection, which is just a big real document with some real location data. And then because it's JSON, I'm just passing it into a Python data structure. And then in the main method, so when I call this script, it's just going to, it's checking to see whether I want a document that's inside or outside my region. So this is the real data. This is actually in Glasgow. So this is in Scotland. And then when I run the script, I say I want it to be inside, then it posts a document that is inside this region. And if I don't specify that, then it specifies one that's just in a random location in, I don't know where exactly 72 is on latitude, but I suspect it's
we'll find out, right?
Antarctica or something. And in fact, I could just plot that. I'm about to show you how to build like points and polygons and things using a useful online tool. So we could actually find that out.
So you're hoping that there's going to be some Glasgow-based news here now in this feature.
Well, I'm basically creating Glasgow-based news. So this is just, I'm going to be pushing up some fake Glasgow. It's not even fake, it's real data. It's just that I need it to be added to the end of this collection so that I can respond to it when it's added. So that's just kind of, it's not a very difficult script or anything, but I just wanted to explain what I've already done. So let's set up a Python environment. One other thing to note, just a handy little tip, is that I modified the JSON so that I'm setting this flag for dummy equals true to show that this is dummy data, because I'm working with this collection with real data, and maybe I just want to remove all the dummy records that I've been adding that are all essentially the same. So that's a handy way of doing it. It's like if you set yourself a parameter, a field that you can just do a query for that and then delete all the documents that match.
Yeah, it keeps things nice and clean. Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm just going to set up an environment. If anybody has been watching my tutorial of using GDELT tools to build this data set in MongoDB, then the following should be relatively straightforward. I'm creating a virtual environment. I'm calling it venv in my current directory. This just happens to be the way that I work. There's a bunch of different ways of creating virtual environments. VS Code has this awesome thing now where it recognizes when you've created one and you can just activate it. So it's now everything's working with that virtual environment now in VS Code. So I'm going to activate it in this terminal. I've never been a normal user of like IDEs and things like VS Code. Like I always have a terminal up and I'm always running command line stuff because I just find that more efficient. And then if I want to reproduce this stuff, I can tie it together into a script and things like that. It's just nice and easy. Oh, wow. We've got somebody who's staying up late to watch us from New Zealand. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the stream. We've got a few comments in here.
It's good to grab you. Yeah, we run these generally roughly this time and also 5 p.m. GMT, which if it's 10:20 in New Zealand now, quick maths, you're 9 hours ahead of us.
Oh,
right?
First thing in the morning.
Or 11 hours ahead of us, sorry.
Yeah, that's not so bad.
That's not so bad, yeah.
So I've created my virtual environment. I've activated it. You can, in fact, I had it activated already. You can see that by the VM at the end of the line. And I'm now on the wrong screen. So I'm going to install my dependencies. So let me just show you the dependencies up here. We've got PyMongo with the SRV extensions. So that's really important for connecting to Atlas, is you need this extensions. Otherwise, you need to install things like DNS Python and some. In fact, I think that's the main one for this. But that's what you need to install. I would always install PyMongo with that, basically. Okay. Then we've got the Twilio client for sending SMS messages. In this case, although Twilio offers a whole load of functionality around notifications, we could be using WhatsApp and various other sort of platforms. I've imported Rich because it's really handy for displaying output like JSON or BSON. And then I've installed this tool called Metadata Parser that I'm going to use to kind of scrape some data from the original website so that I can send myself a meaningful SMS message. And I haven't set any version numbers on here because this is just like a throwaway project. This is just something I built in a few hours to demonstrate some MongoDB features. So otherwise, normally I would really tie those down to specific versions of those dependencies so that this continued to work in the future. So let me just install that. There we go. Love Fish's auto-completion. I don't use a normal shell either. Using Fish, highly unusual. I don't type on a QWERTY keyboard either. I'm a very weird computer user.
Yeah, you've a lot of keyboards though, right? So what is the keyboard you're using now?
Dvorak. I use Dvorak layout because I'm old. There's a new weird keyboard layout called Colmac and another one called Workman that I would probably learn if I was trying to be a more efficient typist today, but it's too late now.
You've got to rewire your brain. Yeah, there's only so much of that you can do, right?
Well, I did that once before. I assume I could do it again. Anyway, less about the keyboards because I've got a whole cupboard of them over there. I could spend a while talking about those. We should do a stream on keyboards.
Another live stream about keyboards.
So I'm just going to create myself a script, and again, I'm going to do this on the command line with touch, and I'm going to call it. I can't remember. Local news. There we go. News, and I'm going to get rid of this StreamYard is sharing thing because what just happened? There we go. Local news. So now I have a file called local news. I'm going to make it executable, and I'm going to tell it that it should run with Python 3. I'm just going to copy and paste in some stuff at the top of this to save people watching me type inefficiently. If I can find my other VS Code window.
That's cool. Here's some code you prepared earlier. We're all yeah.
It's there's nothing really very interesting here. Just a few imports and loading some environment variables. So there we go. I'm importing all my dependencies. I'm also importing OS and sys because they're just kind of standard for when you're working with the system, files, command line flags, things like that. And then I'm loading a bunch of environment variables in so that I can use these without having to show them to anybody. So I've set up a couple of private things.
Don't be giving out your passwords and tokens. Yeah,
exactly. I could. There's one that I'm going to use later that I could actually show you because I've locked down my MongoDB instance, so I can only connect to it from my IP. So it's relatively safe to share that password now with other people. but there's still no need to do that, so I'm not going to. And then there's my phone number, which I also don't want to share with you. So these are variables that I'm going to use later on in this script. So the first thing, and I'm going to install Black, so it auto reformats my code every time I save. That's always nice. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a query for existing data in this collection that matches my criteria. So basically it is within a location. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get a connection to my database. So I'm going to get my connection string, which actually I should have just put in here already. There we go. So we've got MDB URI. And then I'm going to just put in some sort of boilerplate. Just copy and paste this from the test script, actually. If anybody does Python normally, they'll be very at home with this, although hopefully they have a template set up for it, so they're not typing it from scratch like I am. So this just is a function that will be run when I run the script. And in fact, I'm just going to stick in a hello world there. This is genuinely the way I start new projects.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Save that, run it here. Oh, so there we go. I don't know what that is auto-completing. Yeah, there we go. So what that's done actually is that's just authenticated with Twilio. So I know my Twilio authentication is working. I don't know that my MongoDB, in fact, I haven't even created a client for MongoDB yet. But even if I did, MongoDB, the client is relatively lazy, so it doesn't connect until you actually ask it to do something that requires a network connection. So creating a client is actually like a null operation. You're just configuring a client object. So let's do that. Oops. It's PyMongo, isn't it? Yeah. I switch between languages so often that these days I struggle to remember all the minor differences between the different clients and things. There we go. And then I am going to get the default DB because it's part of the connection string. So DB equals MongoDB client dot get default base, and that's a function. And then I'm going to, I told you before, I'm going to be working with this events collection. So I can just go events equals db.events. And there we go. So now I should be able to do a query on that. Let's just do a find one to just check that my connection is actually properly configured. So I'll just do print events dot find one, and then not giving it a filter. It's just going to spit out the first document that it finds in that collection. Hopefully, there we go.
There you go.
So these are what the documents look like. We've got our actor 1, actor 2. And action. Now, sometimes, not always, but sometimes these contain a field called geo. So in this case, in fact, I think they do always contain a field .geo, but if they don't have a valid geolocation, it's 0, 0.
Yeah.
But if they do have it, then you get these coordinates that are actual real numbers. So this is somewhere in Germany. So this is another subtlety of this data set that I don't understand yet, which is that the actor in this case, actor 1, is the United Kingdom, but the point that they've given us is in Germany, in Hanover. So don't understand that really. Oh, I think that the source of the news is kind of the UK. The source of the news is in Hanover. So this is a news case where they found some evidence in Hanover, but it relates to a British news story that's been going on for many years. So yeah, I'm going to have to go back to the documentation. Now I found this weird and what feels like an anomaly, and try and understand where it's coming from. And then we got the source URL, which is all important. So I want events like this. I want only events like this. I basically want to draw a polygon around, in this case, Scotland. And only see I want to filter down to the events in there. So there's what I need is what's called a Geojson Polygon, and that's basically a bunch of numbers. So they're quite difficult to build from scratch. So you really want a tool to do that. And I found one, which is really cool. It's this free tool called geojson.io, and it starts off with a map of your. I don't know if it always zooms in on UK, because I don't think I zoomed it. I guess it just knows where I am. And I'm just going to draw a polygon around the UK, and then it builds the GeoJSON data structure on the right-hand side when I complete the polygon. So make sure we include all those.
Yeah, it's slick. I like it. Yeah,
it's neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just try not to include Ireland.
You don't want to see any of my news in there, Nat.
No, we don't want to see your news. We want to see my news. So here on the right-hand side, it's actually created me those.
And you got your points. Okay.
Super useful. So I'm actually going to take the whole geometry data structure, which I think is this. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
Count your brackets. Yeah.
It is difficult to match up those brackets. I've got a utility, which you'll probably see in a minute in, oops, I'm wrong window.
Mark, Steve had a question. I don't know if it suits now to answer, just in case, because it's late for Steve in New Zealand, in case he can't make it to the end of the stream. Can I store a resume token for change streams in a capped collection? I don't know the answer to that myself. Do you?
Yes, I don't see why not. If you wanted to resume, if you wanted to drop offline from a watch and then resume where you left off, then yeah, you'd need to store the resume token somewhere. So, and MongoDB is as good a place as any to store those tokens.
Okay.
I haven't used them before, if I'm being honest. So I'm only getting that from the documentation that I read a few days ago. Oops, Polygon. It is worth noting that this, whoops, this data structure here is a polygon, which is just kind of a, it's not a loop, but it's a closed set of lines. But there's a type called a multi-polygon. So if I was interested in, say, stuff that was happening in Scotland and in Ireland, or places that weren't next to each other, like
you could have a number of them.
Absolutely, and still do lookups with those. So that we're going to use this in a query in a moment.
You learn something new every day. A multi-polygon. Okay.
I try to. Yeah. I try to learn new things every day. It doesn't always work out that way. Where was I? So we got our polygon, and now I just need to insert that into a query. So I'm going to do this with, I could do it with a find one. Let me do it with an aggregation, because we're going to be using aggregations later on anyway. So it's better that I build my aggregation now, and then we can reuse it. So if you haven't used aggregations before, they're kind of an extension of the find syntax, the find sort of query structure. And so you can actually use that query structure in an aggregation pipeline. Is just much more powerful. You can do grouping and run window functions across your data and a whole bunch of other stuff. It is apparently Turing complete, which is, if anything, too much power for a query language, but I love it. It's super powerful. So it's a series of events. It's a series of stages, sorry, that like operations that you apply to the data in a collection to either filter out data you don't want, or to modify the data, or to group data together. And at each stage will produce new documents of some kind. Those documents go into the next stage, which may make more changes to them, and then eventually you'll run out of stages, that these operations that you're running on them, and then those documents will be what comes out of the end of your aggregation pipeline. So those are the documents you can then work with in your program. Steve is saying that he uses aggregation in pretty much everything, and I have to say I'm exactly the same. And Compass is just a great tool, or even the Atlas Data Explorer has an IDE built in. Nice thing about Compass is you can save those aggregation pipelines. So any queries that you build using this visual editor, you can just hit save, and then they're presented to you the next time you connect to that cluster. Right. So I've started. So it's a series of operations. The stages are stored in an array. The first item is here. I've just basically opened the first item with those by starting a new dict or object or document, as we call them in MongoDB. And this is going to be a match stage. And a match stage is basically the same as running find. So bar a couple of really minor exceptions, you can stick a whole find query in here and it should work. And in this case, I want to do a lookup by location, so things inside that polygon. So just to jump back to the docs, I want to do a geospatial query, and there's a few operations we could do here. I'm going to do geo within because I want to find out if the point is inside the polygon. So it looks a bit like this. It takes a geometry parameter, and then that geometry parameter looks exactly like the data structure that we just passed in. So it's a polygon or a multi-polygon. So I'm just going to kind of copy this part out. I don't know if this is actually going to save me any time, if I'm being honest. So I now need to put the quotes around because this is Python and not JavaScript. And then I just saved that data structure into a variable called interesting polygon. So this is the stuff that I'm interested in.
I like your naming. Yeah. Interesting polygon.
Oh, yes, of course. The only problem is I haven't told it what field I want to match against. So the field that I want to match against is, and let me close this so that I don't have problems with that later, at least in theory. So at the moment, I'm just going to check things where actor1.geo, which is a point. I like it when it reformats it because that means I've got all my brackets lined up. So I'm just going to check with actor1 now. And then if I run this, hopefully it should come back with some documents. Oh, first I need to loop through the cursor for event in events.aggregate. So it's worth noting I only have a random kind of 15-minute blocks. So I have about 5 hours data in there at the moment. And it just so happens that contains some UK data because I tested this before. At least I hope it does, because otherwise we're going to have to debug it. And I don't like debugging live. There we go. But it's not, if I was working with the entire data set, that would be thousands and thousands and thousands of documents. So, my program would be running for a while. But there we go. Action is Madrid here, but I'm assuming this is probably related actually to that if that news article I was talking before. Oh no. So there we go. But we have somebody from Strathpeffer, which sounds definitely like a Scottish town.
Definitely.
There we go. It's in the Highlands. So we have actor1 here is a point in Scotland, which is amazing. So that was already really quick. I have not indexed this collection. So it has about, I think, around 30,000, 40, 50,000 documents in it. Indexes would make this more efficient in the database, but because it's not a huge amount of data, I don't need to worry about that yet. I probably should, but I haven't done that. I'm just explaining you can make this really efficient for looking stuff up. This is not just doing a brute force geofencing test against each point in the database. It's doing a really efficient lookup using kind of clever techniques for doing geospatial searches.
And that's the thing, I suppose, that that's why we also created the GDELT tools to allow you to import the data into your own cluster. Is if you want to create your own indexes and you want to refine and I suppose reshape the data set to suit you, that's why we're allowed. If you want to use the read only, you're stuck with the way we've done it. But if you want to reshape it, that's when you take your own set into your own cluster, and that's why we have the Atlas credit codes as well too. But your M0 will get everybody started. Depends. I don't know. Did we ever put a size on it, Mark? Like, what is a year's worth of data on GDELT?
I think it ended up being 2 terabytes. It was pretty big.
Okay. So you could probably you're going to be down to a few weeks or a month or two, and trying to work with that.
Or filtering down the data to what you're interested in. So you can do that at ingestion time, just kind of throw away any documents that you're not going to be interested in, and then they're not going to be filling up your indexes and using up all the RAM on your instance. as well.
Yeah, and if you look at the resources section in the forums too, we had in one of our earlier live streams, we had Kalev, who is the founder of GDELT, and he gave us some hints and tips to, I suppose, essentially reduce the data size and the data set and things. You know, some of them are very large and have extraneous data that we don't necessarily need as well. And in the resources section, I think I put a link to a few of those a couple of weeks back as well. Well worth checking out. We did get a question, well, not a question actually, but an FYI there, Mark, about Compass will generate your Python code from your aggregation.
I absolutely did know that, yes.
Yes.
It's very cool. There's a subset of languages that are supported. I think mainly it's like Python, Java, and C# at the moment. Rust is about to be added soon if it hasn't already been added. So that gets more powerful as a feature all the time. But yeah, I worked with Compass a lot when I was first starting out with aggregations. These days, I sometimes find it's just a bit faster to get them typed. But I certainly was jumping backwards and forwards between the Atlas Data Explorer editor and the text earlier today. But yeah, Compass is an awesome tool. Highly recommend that you have Compass installed on your machine and use it for at least build it, starting out with queries and things like that. So
definitely.
I've got a match here. This is only matching on Actor 1 at the moment. So I really want to match against Actor 1 Geo, Actor 2 Geo, and Action Geo. So I'm just going to stick all of these in a big OR expression. So OR takes a list of criteria. It didn't reformat.
Gotta do some tidying.
Why didn't it reformat? Oh, come on. Right, like that. Oops. Like these.
Do you have an extra bracket?
Because I've forgotten the curly braces on the outside. Yeah. I missed them when I was typing. Is that better? It isn't, because now I have a square bracket there as well. Why do I have? Should have used the visual editor in Compass. And then there's a square bracket there, which is good, right? Match. That's inside. If anybody can see what I'm missing. Oh, I think actually there should be another one there. There we go. Oh,
sorted.
There we go. So Actor 1 Geo is at the top, Actor 2 Geo, and then Action Geo. And then hopefully if I run this, it will come back with even more. There we go. So that's all good. Excellent. I could run some better tests to make sure I am actually getting like it's not just still filtered to Actor 1. I was like, oh, what was that? Did I? There we go. It wasn't checking Actor 2. Now it's checking Actor 2. Actor 1, Actor 2, Action.
Action. Yeah, you got the 3.
Right. So that's how you do an aggregation to filter down by location. But I actually want to watch this collection for new documents being added. So for that, I'm gonna want this query basically, or something very like it. So let me take that and put that up here as a variable. So this is interesting query. That's not a good name. Naming things is hard. Right. So I actually want to run watch on this collection. And watch just sits there. It doesn't do anything until changes are made to your collection. So if I just run this, it's just going to sit and wait. There we go. And then if I run my test script, excuse me. Oh, what are you doing? It's auto-completing for some reason. Okay, so it just fired an event into that collection, and then that collection that was picked up by the watch call. So it's just printing it out. The problem was that wasn't inside my Polygon. It would have been had the auto-completion not been going slightly crazy. This one is inside, and unfortunately, we're not going to get to watch it straight. But you're just going to have to trust me that this is a different event that we're looking at now.
We trust you, Mark. We trust you.
I need to filter the events coming through this watch, and you can do that because you can attach a pipeline to a call to watch, which is really cool. I didn't know about this until a few months ago when Asya, our colleague Asya, mentioned it. And yeah, that was quite exciting. But the problem is it's not a problem, but something to note is these are not the same as the documents that we've just inserted. So this is the same, but there's actually a higher level document. So this is the terminology is difficult here because these are events coming from the database, or I guess that's sort of because you get things like inserts, updates, deletes, and we're going to receive all of those at the moment. And we only want inserts. So we can take that because this tells you what type of operation it was. And it just so happens that when you get an insert, you also get the full document that was inserted. So everything's one level down now.
Sure. Okay.
So let me just change this query so that first it's only matching. I'm just going to stick another match stage on the front because I'm pretty certain that the optimizer will the optimizer will deal with this quite sensibly, right? Having two matches. If necessary, it will combine them together into one operation. We don't need to worry about that. Like I try not to be smarter than the optimizer because I'm not. So first, this is just going to filter on operation types inserts. And then it's going to pass it through to the next stage, which does the complex geospatial check. So this, because I figure if somebody's updating documents in the collection, then they're probably just tidying up some data or something like that. We're probably not interested in updates. We're only interested in things that have just happened. So that's documents that are being inserted. And then the problem we're going to have now, I'm wondering whether anybody has, no, we haven't got anybody pointing it out to me yet, but it's not actor one anymore. It's full document dot actor one.
Okay. And
for all the other fields. And I'm not sure this is going to work, but it's worth trying, right? Interesting query. I just like that felt too easy. I had quite a lot of struggle to get this working earlier. So I have to cancel as I said, it just sits there and loops through all the events that come through. So I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to switch back to here, and I'm going to fire an outside event. So if I don't say inside, then it's just going to fire me this weird point across the other side of the planet. And I'm hoping that won't get picked. Yes, it didn't get picked up. So now let's see. Now let's see if an inside event gets picked up. Inside is true. There we go.
Well done.
It down. So now I basically have a program that sits there, and anytime a relevant event is added to this collection, it at the moment is just executing this print statement. I did sacrifice a Python script to the demo gods. Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
I very much needed to.
That's normal coding practice, isn't it? I think that's.
So here's the thing. I got this is actually the last bit that I did while I was writing my demo script. So I was more worried about getting Twilio working and just making sure my query worked. So the aggregation that we did earlier was the first thing I did, and I got that fine. It's like, okay, I've got GeoWithin working. That was the one complex thing. And then let's just get Twilio set up and make sure that's working. And that was working. And then this morning, I just had to tie it together to make it work with Watch. And I can't explain why, but I had huge amounts of problems. And in fact, no, I'm going to explain why, because I was really bashing my head against the desk, and I still haven't quite got to the root of it. So this data that I copied out of the Atlas Data Explorer earlier, so it's just like a big blob of JSON, basically. There's some geodata in here. So there's I should really search for point, maybe. Let's do that instead of, it's a very long line. That's the first one, which I don't think is valid. And then let's look to the next one. There we go. So this is what was downloaded. So this is what's called canonical JSON, I think, or canonical BSON. This is how BSON gets converted to JSON in a way that you can insert it again, and it will be exactly the same, including sort of weird BSON types, not weird BSON types, but the types that BSON adds to JSON. And so all of these numbers, like the JSON originally was just this, right? It was just coordinates and then a square bracket and then minus 4.45. But because Atlas wants us to be very precise about our types, it's going, this is a number double. But when I run this, and when I just add this to the collection, it's, I really need to turn off notifications. Excuse me a moment. Do not disturb. There we go. So if I just add this document into the collection, it looks identical to the existing document, but it doesn't get picked up. It doesn't match the query that I run, and I cannot work out why. They are stored as doubles in there. They're just not matching. So this was one of the reasons that I ended up like tidying that up later. So this inside and outside, I'm just specifying those as Python floats, and when those get added, they match or don't match when they're outside. It's like they work the way they're supposed to. So I do not know what is going on there. And and I need to do some more research. But it's very interesting. It's almost certainly something that I don't understand, rather than a problem with MongoDB. But I have to go and ask Asya to help me with that, I think.
Yeah, well, you got a workaround, right? So I think.
Oh yeah, well that's it. Like just working with it as raw Python data works absolutely fine the way you sort of expect. So
and that, I mean, I think this morning before the stream, I asked Mark, said, "All good? You all ready?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's kind of some problems. It might be a bit scrappy.
It might not work."
But it's looking well. It's looking well.
So the next bit is to get some. So this data is kind of raw, it's like if I was to send myself a text with this data, it's not going to be super useful. And I figured like the most interesting things are probably the URL that the data came from, and the title maybe, or the description. So I'm going to those aren't, or at least the URL's in here, but the title isn't in here. So I'm just going to scrape that from the URL that's provided with the document, and I could have used an HTML parser to pull that out, but there's already this this library I've installed already called Metadata Parser. Documentation isn't great, but it does quite a clever job of looking at the metadata that's provided in the HTML. So it starts with the open graph data, and then it looks at the Twitter data, and then it eventually falls back to the actual just title in the HTML if necessary. So it should be able to get something useful for me. The way that you use that is so I am actually going to copy and paste some code in now, because as I say, nobody wants to watch me type. So I'm just pulling this URL out of the source document. I am then going to run the parser on this URL. So it's quite neat. It fetches the data and then it parses it. And then I can get the title out of there by just mp dot get metadata, and you tell it you want the title. So that gives me the title, and then I can build myself a message, just a text message to send to myself. We'll use f strings for that. And so first I want the title. Love f strings. And then I just want the source URL. So that should be a useful message for me. And then I need to use my Twilio client, which was configured up the top. So I already configured the Twilio client with my ID and token. So I should just be able to use that to send myself a text message. Twilio client dot messages dot create. And then it takes. So I don't know what this is. I don't even know if it's important. This is just basically taken from the Twilio tutorial. There's a sort of service ID here, and I don't exactly know what that's for. And then it's body equals message. I used to work for one of Twilio's competitors.
And why aren't you using them?
Honestly, because this was just quicker to get set up, and because I did think I might do this with Realm functions. So we already have a Twilio integration with Realm, and so it just gives you kind of Twilio in the background pre-configured that you can use to send text messages and things. So I didn't end up doing that, but that was really why I set up Twilio for this.
Makes sense. John asked the question there: Can we get access to this in a repo? Mark, is this up available?
Yeah, sure. I'll add it to. So I am GD2K on Twitter, the same as I am on GitHub as well as Twitter and whatever. So if you check out there, I'll add a repo later today, just early afternoon, with this code in it.
And we put it in the resources in the Hackathon forums as well too. So
good idea. Yeah. So Steve is saying that if you try printing Python floats, they'll probably be much longer than the number you enter. So he's right, but there was a really interesting thing done with Python 3.4, I think, where they changed the way that they print floats. It's very clever because often you will get, because certain floats can't be represented accurately as floating point numbers. You get this sort of long string of random digits. And Python actually does something quite sensible now to show you to a sensible number of digits. There was this one of the Python, it might have been PyCon Italia. Everybody was walking around with T-shirts with a float on the back, sort of 5 decimal places or something, and it was all to show off the new feature of Python, the fact that you could put in this number and it would actually print out as the same way.
Okay, so did they define a sensible number of digits as 5, or?
It's cleverer than that, but I never really understood the details, if I'm being honest.
Interesting. Yeah, we must look it up.
So that was a random sidebar. So now I've created my message. I think that just sends it, actually. So let's just run it, shall we? And see what happens. So I'll just shut down that code there. I could stick a try catch and to catch that keyboard interrupt so it doesn't print it as an error, because it's not really an error. I've just done a Control-C, but it gets caught by Python as an error. So let me run this. Oh, and then I need to run my test scripts. So make sure it's
put something in. Yeah.
Inside. We already know that this is going to match. So that went very fast. What happened? I think we got an error. There we go. Oh no, warnings. Oh, I got it. It worked. Nice. So point that at the camera.
Phone? Excellent.
Let me just unlock my phone. So there we go.
There, look, we'll show it there. Mark's a bit bigger. Hold on.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it still can't see it. It says Teresa Breslin's new book for teens. So I'm not quite sure why that's geopolitical data. And I click through and it goes to the Herald newspaper, which is one of the Scottish newspapers that we got here.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. So it even displayed.
It worked. Yes.
Love it when things work. Yeah. So there's a few things I could do here. There's no error handling here. I would probably put in some rate limiting as well, because if there's a sudden bit of news happens, you're going to get kind of 50 news articles, and I don't want a link to all of them. There's a bunch of ways you can really improve this, but that's pretty much the code for today. As I say, I'll get this up on GitHub later. We'll post in the forums to let you know where that is. And I hope you found that interesting and useful. I really like this ability to watch collections. So it's one of the features that I like most in MongoDB, along with aggregation pipelines. So yeah.
No, this is...
Anybody got any questions before we wrap up?
I'm keeping an eye on the side. I think we caught most of them as they came in, which is good. I think this has been super, because what we've shown there is we've got this large data set. We are then kind of narrowing it down. You put your Polygon in there, and then you said, right, what's going to happen when something inside of this area gets added to the data set? Then I'm going to get an alert. And it's just one example of the sort of things that you can do. And that's really, I suppose, what we're trying to see. We have our theme, we're using the GDELT data set, but there's so many variations on how you can deal with that, and what you can build. I know we had some questions on the forums there that, people were saying that in the GDELT data set, the other two things that are really interesting, which we do cover in the other live streams, are the tone and the sentiment and what's called the cameo codes as well. So you can look at just the good news, not the bad news. That's a nice way to go. Or you can use the cameo codes, which I think we definitely should do another session on, Mark. The cameo codes are a way of indexing types of events, in essence. And, so you can find some cameo codes that you might be particularly interested in much the same way as Mark Polygon and Geofenced Scotland. You could look for, I'm only interested in this type of news. And then you'll get that regardless of where it is globally as well, too. So there's so much variation in what you can do and build around this data set that makes it so interesting. Added to the fact that it continuously updates as well, too. Added to the fact that it's global. It's monitoring all of the world's print, web, and broadcast news. And we had Kalev on, and he was saying it doesn't really do social, because social is not necessarily news. Social is, here's a picture of my dinner, right? So or my dog or my cat.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Though sometimes that's important. You get more cat pictures that way.
Yeah. So if you want to build a puppy aggregator for Scotland out of the GDELT dataset, it's not going to work, because you're not going to find.
Can I just answer John's question here, or more like a statement? So in fact, no, I think all of our supported drivers now support Watch or change streams in some way. And as Steve has also mentioned, basically what we built in Python today absolutely works in Node. You'll have no problem running that. Or you could write a realm function that essentially acts as a trigger. So the function just gets called each time a document's inserted. So there's a bunch of different ways to go with this. The Rust driver only just added change stream support. So it didn't support that until maybe a month ago. So that's very exciting, because I didn't realize that was coming. And so the release notes for that mean that I can now write things like this in Rust when I want to. So John, so this is not the collection that's made available for the hackathon, because I needed to be able to write to it, and that's really a read-only collection. This is the collection that I created. I've created a couple of times on the live stream before, so it's using GDELT tools to load data in and transform it into this structure. So if you're interested in kind of building your own version of this, then that's then going back over those videos and following those instructions is the way to go. And as Steve says, you can watch a single collection. You can filter that collection as we've done it here. You can watch a whole DB, or you can watch a complete cluster, a complete sharded cluster if you want to. So yeah, there's a bunch of options for responding to events over your data, depending on kind of the granularity that you're interested in. So yeah, I think that's us for today. And we pretty much brought that down within the hour, which is good, because sometimes these have been stretching long, haven't they? I think we're both talkative people.
Well, I think we find we're coming up to the hour and we still have lots to do. So I think this one was superbly timed. Well done, Mark. It was great, and it worked, and you showed it, and it came in on your phone. So it's not, it's really working. It's not just kind of running.
There's a lot of moving parts there. I was, it was quite. It wasn't a relief that it worked. It was just a surprise that I hadn't kind of dropped in another bug. while I was making that code, putting that code together. So yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you found this useful. And there's another stream this afternoon, isn't there?
Yeah, we might kind of delve a little bit more into this as well too, and some other aspects. So we're going to do another stream, 5 p.m. GMT, 12 Eastern, and convert those to whatever place in the world you are as well too. Cannot do time zones mentally in my head ever. I'm always getting them wrong. Hence, I've got multiple clocks in the corner of my.
Is it 5 p.m. GMT or 5 p.m. British summertime?
Sorry, British summertime, indeed. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so that'll be 4 p.m. UTC.
Yeah. Yeah. We do a whole live stream on what time is it here. So, yes, it would be. It would be definitely. So we'll do that. So keep an eye out for that. It might be both of us again. We'll see. We try and rope in some volunteers to join us on the streams as well too, as much as possible. And don't forget, tomorrow the Fun Hack Friday is more open-ended. So we will have Nick doing his news browser, his MVP on that, and adding to that.
It's looking really good.
Yeah, and the other thing, if I could shout out and say, if anybody wants to also jump on and demo what they're building for the hackathon on the Fun Hack Friday, it's very, very simple. Just reach out in the forums to any of us. We'll send you a link to jump in and join us on StreamYard, and you can have 5 minutes to demo. And if you do, we send you some swag. It's as simple as that. So 5 minutes of your time, free swag. What's not to like?
Yeah, Steve's not staying up for the latest stream.
Steve, come on.
But it's recorded. I mean, you can't chat and help, but if you're interested in the content, it'll be posted there tomorrow.
Yeah, they are. That's the reason we're trying to record them. Unfortunately, Nick is in West Coast US, so we're getting him up quite early to do that time for us. If we try to get him up earlier, it is certainly the middle of the night for him. So that's why
he is fortunately a morning person. He's usually looking pretty awake at that time in the morning.
Yeah. So that's been great. Well, Mark, thank you so much. That was great and a superb demo and really well illustrated and very easy to follow in what you've built. And then it all worked at the end of the day, and you caught all the couple of errors that got thrown, not too many. So fair play.
Right.
This has been super.
We'll see you all.
Excellent. Take care, everyone.